Bollywood entertainment, Bollywood gossip, Bollywood classics,
मुझको क्या हुआ है
to the latest hits,
मैं पानी पानी हो गई
local news and events happening around town, giveaways, and lots of musty. This is Namaste Radio. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. on 99.5 FM with your hosts, Vanchika, Sushil, and Sandeep. Listen online at namasteradiohouston.com. Download the app, available on your Android and iPhone. Namaste Radio.
Welcome to India House Houston. India House is a non-profit organization that serves the community by bringing resources, education, and services to Houstonians like health and fitness programs, language classes, charity clinic, and various events. Help the community now. Sponsor a program or volunteer for free food distribution at India House. Host your next indoor or outdoor events at India House facility, parties, weddings, or corporate events. Located centrally at 8888 West Belford, Houston. For details, call 713-929-1900 or visit indiahouseinc.org. Follow India House Houston on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Good afternoon. Namaste to everyone listening to us on 99.5 FM on our Facebook app. This is Namaste Radio and मैं हूँ वंशिका और मेरे साथ हैं संदीप और this is the special series that we are very proud to be a part of, and it is the mental health awareness in Asian American series, and we are back with it. And so thankful to India House Houston, Hawk Foundation, Asian American Health Coalition for their sponsorships and for making us a partner on this radio show. Again, this is Vanshika. Thank you for tuning to our show today. We will be here for the next 4 Saturdays from noon to 1 p.m. talking to different people about mental health related issues in Asian Americans, talking to different speakers. So stay tuned every Saturday from noon to 1 p.m. only on 99.5 FM. And you can also watch us on our Facebook page, which is Namaste Radio, and participate during the show. Again, want to thank India House Houston, Hawk Foundation, and Asian American Health Coalition. Now, October is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and when we think of domestic violence, there's one organization that comes to my mind, and I'm sure a lot of you all know about it, and that is Daya Houston. They have been empowering domestic violence survivors for almost 25 years, and today we will be talking to them. Of course, a lot of people are associated with the organization doing great work, but today we have Harima Mela talking to us, and she's the Client Services Director at Daya Houston. She's the licensed counselor who provides trauma therapy to survivors, and she leads Daya's Client Services team. Hello and welcome to Namaste Radio, Harima. Thank you so much.
Hi, Vanchika. Namaste, everyone. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. This is a very special series to all of us here at Namaste Radio. And whenever we come back with this series, there's so much that we learn, and it's just a very uplifting series that we bring here. So thank you again. And to start with, Daya Houston. Before I start with that question, to tell us about Daya, I want to remind everybody that we have pinned right below on our Facebook page. If you're listening to us on Facebook, Namaste Radio's Facebook, Daya's information, their website, their contact details is pinned on this Facebook Live. So don't forget to have that information and reach out to them if you have to. And of course, you can also participate in this show, which we would really appreciate. Send us some feedback. Right here in the comments, or you can also participate by sending us messaging us on our Facebook page, Namaste Radios, directly. and we will choose one person who will be able to get a $20 gift certificate to Arling's Chinese Cuisine, and we want to thank Arling's Chinese Cuisine for sponsoring this gift certificate. Now, talking to Harima, please tell us about Daya and what does Daya do?
Right. As you mentioned, Sadaya has been around here in the Houston community for 25 years now. And we first started out as a very small organization just created by a group of Indian American women in Fort Bend County who were so deeply touched by a murder suicide that happened in the Indian community that they decided to start an organization to help South Asian survivors of domestic violence because they saw that there's a need for culturally specific help for these survivors. So that's how Daya was born. And 25 years later, we have obviously grown. Now we are a culturally specific nonprofit providing services for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, family violence, anything that falls under that umbrella of abuse and domestic violence. So, cultural specificity is there to help people who would not be equally served as well going to a mainstream domestic violence organization. So, that means we have staff that speak various South Asian languages, we understand their culture, we understand involvement of things like in-laws and immigration status and religion and joint family systems and all those things that other organizations might not understand about the South Asian culture. So we are non-residential, meaning we don't have shelter, but we provide licensed counseling, advocacy for housing, legal needs, public benefits, education, all kinds of things to help a survivor who's going through domestic violence.
And all of this is for no cost.
Yes, all of our services are free, they're fully confidential. Every call to our helpline is confidential, and we make sure we make everybody understand who calls us that we do not share anything with anybody else without their written permission, including family members.
Wow, wow, what amazing work. And somewhere, I feel all of us, and I think you and I have also discussed this when we were like trying to do a little pre-show, talk, that um, us or someone we know very closely has been a victim of domestic violence. So, what's the kind of number that you look there? Like, what is it? How often do you see that, in one family, like there's so many people there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. So, one of the hashtags for Domestic Violence Awareness Month is everyone knows someone. And we talked about this too. So, statistically, overall, in general population, not just South Asian, it's 1 in 3 people have been subjected to some kind of dating violence, sexual harassment, intimate partner violence. And that does not just include physical, but also verbal, emotional, sexual, other types of intimate partner violence. So that's a lot of people, 1/3. Everybody knows somebody. If it wasn't them, they know somebody intimately and closely who has had these kinds of experiences. So it's a really common thing. In the South Asian community, we may not talk about it as much. We see it as sort of a private matter, a family matter. हम कहते हैं कि नहीं ये चीज़ें फैमिली में ही रखनी चाहिए,
Mhm.
like अपनी बात दूसरों से नहीं करनी चाहिए. Like we have all these beliefs and stigmas around talking about this, and that of course carries on to the stigma also applying to mental health issues, and that might especially be caused by domestic violence.
Absolutely. And that is one thing that we've always seen whenever we talk about mental health, and even in our previous series, that it's such a taboo that, ये बस अपने तक रखो, किसी को मत बताओ. So difficult हो जाता है अपनी बात कब तक एक इंसान अपने अंदर तक रखे, and it kind of, bothers you more, which in turn leads to your mental health being disturbed. Now, talking about that, so how does domestic violence impact someone's mental health? I know we touched a little bit about it, but if you can tell us a little more detail.
Yeah, like you were just talking about the silence, right? Like having to keep something to yourself is very isolating. It creates a lot of loneliness, feeling that nobody can understand what you're going through, feeling that you are not allowed to talk about what you're going through with anybody. And in our culture, there's this concept of like badnaam ho jana, badnami, or izzat. Like
Mhm.
if you speak about it, you're bringing, dishonor to your family, or you're bringing a bad name to your family, you're ruining your family's reputation. So those are a lot of pressures that add mental stress, anxiety, and depression to somebody who's going through domestic violence. And abuse itself is a very traumatic experience. It's similar to going through other types of traumas in the way that it affects the brain. So when we think of trauma, we might think of like being in a war zone or getting into a car accident or the death of a loved one, like a big traumatic, a very stressful experience that's horrifying, that in which you feel that you have no control. So
Mhm.
living with an abusive partner is like that, but every day. So every day there's little things happening that make you feel that you are not in control of what's going on around you, making you feel unsafe. And that
Mhm.
in turn leads to feelings of um, unsafety, feeling alone, unsafe in your own home, sometimes unsafe in your own body, especially when it comes to sexual abuse. That makes people feel unsafe in their own bodies. They can't relax. They can't really, feel that they have agency over their own bodies. They feel that their body is for somebody else. It's being controlled by somebody else or used by somebody else. So that can be very, very traumatic.
Mhm.
And they often blame themselves from based on what the abuser is telling them, that this was your fault. If only you didn't do this, I wouldn't have had to hit you, or I wouldn't have had to yell at you if you didn't do this. So hearing those kinds of messages again and again, the survivors start to blame themselves. And that can spiral into a lot of negative thoughts, feeling worthless, feeling like they deserve the abuse, leading to depression, anxiety, and post traumatic stress disorder as well.
I see. And that is really sad. Like, I think I had shared this with you earlier also, that I do have someone who, went through this. And, it's very sad. It's exactly like how you just explained it to all of us, that they just believe that they are bad. I mean, they just believe that 100% that it's their fault. They are bad. And at this point, I want to ask people who are listening to us, if even if you're listening to us on 99.5 FM, uh, come to our Facebook page right now on Namaste Radio, and share if there's anything you would like to share, and if you were able to, the way you were able to come out of it. That may encourage someone who's reading that. If you don't want to share it publicly, you can always message us directly on our Facebook page on Namaste Radio, and tell us that, was there a situation that you ever felt something like this, or was there someone that you spoke to, that one person that you confided to? So share with us, and we'll be we'll pick one person and try to respond to you. Maybe if you need help, we can even connect you to Harima or at Daya overall. So now, you said about verbal sexual abuse, all of that, but tell us about, physical violence the most damaging to survivors, since you've spoken to them, you've seen so many of them, or are there other types of abuse that impact mental health?
That's a great question. Yeah, most of us, when we first think of domestic violence or we hear about it, we get this picture in our mind of, a man hitting a woman, right? That's a kind of the typical stereotypical image, but it's really a lot more than that. It's not just a man hitting a woman. Many times, domestic violence can be perpetrated from a woman to a man, from a man to a child, a woman to a child. Family violence comes in all kinds of so-called shapes and sizes, and it does not discriminate when it comes to socioeconomic status, your income level, your education level, what kind of family you come from, your race, your religion, your country of origin. All the research we've seen, so it can happen to anybody, anywhere. It does not discriminate. And similarly, the types of abuse, it's not just physical either.
Mhm.
There's emotional and psychological and verbal abuse, which I sort of referenced earlier when I was talking about the kinds of things that a survivor might hear, that the abuser might say, like, you are worthless, you are useless, you can't do anything right, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, like name calling, insulting,
Mhm.
controlling, extreme kind of jealousy or suspicion, like if I can't have you, no one can have you. Even just little things like, I've heard kind of examples from survivors that they would get locked in the room or they would get locked in the bathroom, and he would say, like, you can't come out until I say you can come out.
Oh
It's
my
just sort of a
God.
very psychological abuse, even though he didn't touch her, right?
Mhm.
उसने हाथ तो नहीं लगाया उसे, उसके ऊपर
Mhm.
कोई निशान नहीं है.
Mhm.
But it's things like this that can be very damaging to a person's mental health. So those were examples of emotional or psychological abuse. And then some of the lesser known forms of abuse would also be financial abuse and immigration abuse that we
Mhm.
see a lot in our clients. So financial abuse would be like keeping somebody away from the family finances. Like, let's say they're married, उसको पैसे को हाथ लगाने की इजाज़त नहीं है. She does
Mhm.
not have access to the bank accounts, even though the family might be quite wealthy, but she has no access to anything. Her name is not on the house, it's not on the car, it's not on the bank accounts, and she's given a strict allowance that this is all you have to spend. That's it. You have to report to me. I have to look at your credit card statements. I have to look at your phone records. I have to know every single thing that you're doing, every dollar that you're spending. So that's an example of financial abuse where she has very restricted access to be able to do anything, not having a car, not being able to get a driver's license. That's how, like, an abuser might keep somebody under his control financially, not allowing her to get a
Basically,
job.
basically taking away her complete independence, like totally making her dependent on him.
Right, right. And we see that it often happens to women. That's why I'm using she,
Mhm.
but women from, South Asian countries who they were working there, they made good money over there, and here they come and they're not allowed to work, and they're very well educated. So they're felt like here they're made to live like just a housekeeper. Like they're not
Mhm.
allowed to have any independence that they used to enjoy back in their home country.
I
So
see.
immigration abuse, I also mentioned, that's
Yes.
kind of a new concept for a lot of people. But as you may know, and most South Asians know, like when you come here on a spouse visa or you're like a dependent on a visa status that's tied to your marriage, if you were to get a divorce, you become undocumented, you lose that visa status. So that's one way for an abuser to control somebody or to threaten that if you call the police, I'll get you deported, your kids will be taken away from you, things like that. So that often keeps people in abusive marriages because they're so afraid of losing their children. If the children were US born citizens, that
Mhm.
immigration status often keeps them in the marriage when they otherwise would want to leave.
Oh my God. Just listening to you right here, I'll be very honest, my blood is boiling. Because it's unbelievable that people can get down to this level and do. But when I say unbelievable, it's not true because it is actually happening, and I'm sure, like you're mentioning, I think it's happening more to women than men in our Desi culture, right?
Generally, in all cultures, abuse does happen more frequently to women and children than it does to men. But,
Okay.
I want to just put that out there for all the male survivors who might be listening. That does not mean that your experience is not important or it doesn't count. It still counts. And for men, it's many times more difficult to speak out because they
Mhm.
feel extra shame. They feel like no one is going to believe, oh, तुम मर्द होते हुए तुम्हें कैसे किसी औरत ने मार लिया. They feel that they would be more ridiculed or made fun of. So I want to put that out there, like, male survivors, your experience is valid too. We believe you. We want to hear from you. We will help you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Harima. Those are some really, really important points, and we don't realize. But sometimes you can just be around so much abuse and not being able to grow in life. But that's why this show is there. And again, if you are out there, you've been through something like this, you want to share. Please go ahead, share. Please contact Daya, and they are here for you. They will help you on this matter, and you can change your life if you really want to get out of that entire environment. But moving forward on our show now, the next question is that what kind of services can survivors expect? When they call y'all at Daya, like what kind of services can they expect when they call Daya, and especially mental health related?
Yeah, so when someone calls us for the first time, the first thing we do is just assess their situation fully.
Hmm.
We do a brief phone intake. So when you call our helpline, the helpline is answered by all of us who are trained domestic violence advocates. So we've been through a lot of training to know what kind of questions to ask. So we will ask about your safety first and foremost, to gauge the level of risk that you are in, and do some safety planning to help you equip yourself with the knowledge, to be safer, to be prepared in case something were to happen. So we ask about that, and we do tell people at the first call about confidentiality. We tell people that we are mandated reporters for child abuse. So that's the Texas law. If they were to report to us that children under 18 are being abused in the home, we do have to report that to Child Protective Services. So we want people to know that ahead of time. And generally, we tell people what services we provide so they can let us know what they want. And we tell them we have licensed counseling. We can help you with access to housing, to educational programs, to employment. We can refer you to different organizations that can help you with various services that we might not have. We do provide some limited financial assistance for crisis needs. We have partnerships with a lot of Houston area nonprofits that allows us to get our clients legal representation with pro bono or free legal organizations, since that's a big need that we see for legal, and that includes immigration assistance and divorce or family assistance, like child custody, divorce, custody modification, protective order. So we do a lot of legal advocacy and referrals. We don't have attorneys in Daya in house, but we have those partnerships and referrals where we help with that. So when somebody calls us, we will get this information from them. We'll tell them what we offer, and we'll do the safety planning. We'll provide some emotional support and just that listening ear. Just this might be the first time that they're ever telling anybody. So we will, take the time to talk to them about how they're feeling and provide some emotional support as well, and make a plan for how we'll follow up after that. So we do have four mental health providers at Daya, including myself, who are licensed counselors. And we have advocates, all of us who are trained in trauma counseling and crisis intervention. So if somebody's having like some kind of active crisis when they call us, like they just got injured or assaulted, so we will be able to talk them through that, help them with making a police report if that's what they want, help them with accessing medical care, getting them to a shelter, things like that. So, many times people call us in crisis. Sometimes they're not in a crisis, or they're just kind of wanting to explore what their options are. So we get, all kinds of calls. So if you're not sure what you want, or if you're not sure if you want to take any steps, that's okay. We will never tell you what to do or what not to do. We're also very trained to be non-judgmental in that sense. Like we won't say, why haven't you left? Or, why are you still with it? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Like we will just allow you to talk through and process what you're wanting to process.
Basically, holding their hands, guiding them, but allowing them to take their own decisions too. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Like they stay in the driver's seat. We tell them, you are the expert on your own situation. Like you have been living it. We
mhm.
have not. And everyone's situation is different. So, we won't push them or force them to take any kind of step.
That's really great. And, we are also, again, I want to remind everybody that Daya's information is pinned right below this Facebook Live. So even if you're listening to us on our apps or our website or 99.5 FM, you can go to Namaste Radio's Facebook page and check out Daya's information. Um, the next question to you, Harima, that I have is you mentioned about counseling. So, if you could tell us briefly, like, what is counseling and how is it different from just generally, talking to a friend or family about any of your problems? Because sometimes, when it's like, okay, I spoke with my mom and acha dil mera thoda halka ho gaya, लेकिन is it really solving it? I don't know at times. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love that question because it also highlights how important family and friends can be in somebody's healing process, right? Like
Yeah.
your counselor alone is not going to be enough, and your family alone is not going to be enough. It often takes a whole support network, a whole bunch of supportive people around somebody to help them get through something so horrible. So friends and family, your social support network is totally critical in the healing process, and we always ask clients about that. Who's your support network? Who do you have? It doesn't have to be family. Not everybody is really lucky enough to have family that are supportive. Maybe it's just your dog.
Right.
Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's your child's daycare worker. Maybe it's, anybody in your life. So we want to help them come up with like that network of people and tell us who else they have that they can rely on in an
Mhm.
emergency. Like if you need to leave the house in the middle of the night, where will you go? So we have them start thinking about like who they can rely on in that manner. But when it comes to mental health issues, it's not the same as talking to a professional because friends and family, they might not be trauma informed or survivor centered, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. So trauma informed meaning the training that we go through that teaches us as licensed counselors about the impact of trauma on the brain, on people's behaviors, on their day-to-day functioning. We keep all of that in mind when we work with them in counseling.
Mhm.
And counseling is not just talking, right? A lot of times it is talking, but it's goal oriented. It's
Right.
talking with some progress towards a set goal. So the client is the one who sets the agenda. It's not the counselor who is the expert saying, I want to fix this and this. It's the client who says, I want to work on this and this and this. So they set those goals, and then the two of them have kind of a partnership. It's like an alliance. It's not like authority figure and like that. There's no power imbalance, and there should not be a power imbalance, especially working with a survivor of domestic violence. They've been controlled all their lives, like they've been told what to do, so they're used to being like in a subordinate position. But in counseling, they need to get used to being in control now, and setting their boundaries. So counseling is a great way to explore that in a safe environment, like with a safe trusting relationship. Learning how to get comfortable with saying no.
Mhm.
Many times, like my clients want to be friends with me, and they don't want to say no to me ever. Like they just want to chat, right? But with counseling, we want it to be a bit more focused than that. And I also want to mention, like, even if friends and family are very supportive, they have the best of intentions. Sometimes they might say things or direct a survivor to do things that are not in her best interest.
Sure.
And I want to give an example. Maybe they push her to take the children and go back to India, right? They say, like, you should do that because you have family in India. Why don't you just take the children and go?
Mhm.
Legally, that might get her into some trouble. So sometimes, even if they have good intentions, it's best to talk to a professional who can advise you, give you the proper, legal guidance, and prevent you from getting into any kind of trouble later down the line.
Absolutely, and that's really great advice. And it's always good to talk to the professional out there because they know about what they are going. They've gone through that process of learning how to take care of others. And like Harima exactly said that our family is not going to wish bad for us, but sometimes, yeah, their advices cannot really help us at that very moment, and it can actually sometimes can ruin stuff. So it's always great to talk to the professional out there. And Daya is right there for you. So reach out to Daya for sure. And we've been sharing their contact information. And at the end, we'll also give it out again. Now, Harima, now before we take our first break, quickly wanted to ask you this question also. When they, reach out to you for counseling, do people always feel like better after counseling? With your experience, would you like to share about that?
To be very honest, and to have people be prepared, with trauma counseling, you might feel worse before you feel better. It's very
Oh,
common, and that's very normal that you might actually get worse at first. because you may finally be facing some very painful memories and things that you have not faced in many years.
Mhm.
So it's like unpacking some old things that may have been, hiding in the closet in the background, so you're finally starting to face some things that are very difficult and painful to face. So with counseling, you don't always get better right away. It does take time. It works best when there's a trusting relationship and a bond between the therapist and the client. So it takes some time to develop that trust. Like a good counselor is never going to expect a client, especially a victim of abuse, to be trusting right away. And if somebody is too trusting and too open, that's also a sign that they don't have very strong boundaries. They're not protecting their heart, like their guard is all the way down. And with other survivors, it might be that their guard is all the way up. They have a wall up. They're not willing to trust anybody. So it takes some time to kind of develop that relationship. So be prepared to be open and honest if you're entering counseling, and to be prepared to form that alliance with the therapist, and that's how you'll probably get the most out of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that important information and with us and anybody listening out there. If you need to reach out to Daya, we have the information pinned on our Facebook Live right now, and we are also sharing the information, flashing it here on our Facebook Live. But otherwise, you can always visit dayahouston.org. Now we'll be taking a quick maybe 40-second break so that we when we come back we can talk more with Harima about Daya and more services at Daya, of course, all of it connected to mental health awareness. And this we want to thank India House Houston for giving us this opportunity to host this show, to bring more awareness about mental health in South Asians. So thank you to India House Houston, thank you to Hawk Foundation, and thank you to Asian American Health Coalition Hope Clinic. Don't change that dial. Don't go away. We will be back very quick. We are in conversation with Harima Mela, Client Services Director at Daya Houston.
Let's go! Bollywood entertainment, Bollywood gossip, Bollywood classics,
मुझको क्या हुआ है
to the latest hits,
मैं पानी पानी हो गई
local news and events happening around town, giveaways, and lots of musty. This is Namaste Radio. Every Saturday at 10 a.m. on 99.5 FM with your hosts, Vanchika, Sushil, and Sandeep. Listen online at namasteradiohouston.com. Download the app, available on your Android and iPhone. Namaste Radio.
Welcome to India House Houston. India House is a non-profit organization that serves the community by bringing resources, education, and services to Houstonians like health and fitness programs, language classes, charity clinic, and various events. Help the community now. Sponsor a program or volunteer for free food distribution at India House. Host your next indoor or outdoor events at India House facility, parties, weddings, or corporate events. Located centrally at 8888 West Belford, Houston. For details, call 713-929-1900 or visit indiahouseinc.org. Follow India House Houston on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Welcome back. This is Namaste Radio, and this is the Mental Health Awareness in Asian American Special Series. Today we have Harima Mela, the Client Services Director at Daya Houston, and we have been talking to her about a lot of different things. But to continue our conversation, before that, again, thank you so much, Harima, for taking our time and talking to us on this very important topic and sharing all of that important information with our viewers, our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, then, let's move forward. And now, a very important question. And somewhere it is close to my heart because I somewhere felt that a lot of times we really don't know if we are in a abusive relationship. Are we a victim of domestic abuse and whatever kind of abuse it could be? And why I say it is my favorite because this question can enlighten a lot of us at times. So, tell us what are some red flags that your relationship may be harming your mental well being?
This
You know,
is
a lot of times we just don't realize it. And so tell us about that.
Yeah, this is a super important question, and I want to highlight especially for all the young people out there who might be in dating relationships or, new to relationships, new to dating, that these are some things that they should look out for because a lot of research is showing that the rates of dating violence are going up in teenagers. So I want to highlight that fact as well. And I also want to highlight that abuse is not just one behavior. If something happens one time, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in an abusive relationship. Abuse is all about a pattern. There's a pattern of power and control.
Hmm.
That's the important thing to look out for when you're trying to see if you're or somebody is in an abusive relationship or not. Is it a pattern? Does it tend to repeat? We teach our clients about a cycle of violence. Is
Hmm.
that first there's a explosive incident, a fight happens, maybe it becomes violent and there's threats made. That's like an explosion, and then the next phase after that is a honeymoon phase. It might be like, oh, I'm so sorry, oh, mujhe pata nahi kya ho gaya, mujhe gussa aa gaya, like, oh, I just lost my temper, oh, I was drinking,
Hmm.
apologies, excuses, and maybe gifts, maybe being like, very happy for a while, let's go on a date, blah blah blah. That's the honeymoon phase, and at that point, the survivor's feeling good. It's never going to happen again. He apologized, he seems very remorseful. But after the honeymoon phase is a tension building phase. Again, the same kind of pattern starts repeating. Again, he starts acting very cold, very harsh. He starts doing the same kinds of things again, and she will be walking on eggshells, as in she will be very scared, just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, where again, there's going to be an explosive incident. So this pattern tends to repeat in abusive relationships. Um, Many times, patterns can take years. Like you can be in a honeymoon phase for a year. You can be, in the tension building phase for a week. So
Hmm.
the timing of the and all of that, the pattern will vary, but generally it will be that explosion, honeymoon, tension building phase. So some things to look out for, like in a new relationship, especially, is something called love bombing. I don't know if you've heard this term before. Love
No,
bombing.
I've only heard of photo bombing.
Yeah, love bombing is like similar to the honeymoon phase, but it's usually at the beginning of a relationship where somebody wants to move the relationship really fast, and they're being really super romantic with these gestures, lots of gifts, flowers, dates, expensive things, to try to kind of reel somebody in,
Mhm.
and convince them, let's get engaged right now, let's get married right now. Like moving things too fast is a red flag. Like if somebody is not respecting you, saying like, no, I need some time, let's take it slow, that's a bad sign that they're not going to respect your boundaries, or that they're trying to get you committed too quickly before you are ready to be committed. And
Right.
sometimes that's when he has something to hide. Like if he doesn't want you to take too much time getting to know him or his family, he's
Mhm.
trying to love bomb to get you to marry him right away, and then you're stuck. There might be something to hide. So don't be afraid to take your time in a new relationship. And the other thing that sometimes, I blame Bollywood for this is extreme jealousy and suspicion is not romantic. Like
Sure.
stalking
Yeah.
is not romantic. Somebody following you home, showing up outside your door with flowers, like no.
No, that's
Yeah.
creepy.
Yes.
So yeah, to everybody listening out there, you know, if अभी अभी आपको अगर प्यार हुआ है या you're there dating, be very careful of these red flags that Harima is talking about. They are important. It may sound that nay, it's okay, I'll be fine, but like she said, people sometimes know how to rope you in and आपको कैसे बता गिफ्ट्स दे के या आपको बहुत ज़्यादा प्यार जताएंगे and then things change later on. So be very careful of these red flags.
And extreme jealousy, someone wanting to look through your phone, see who you're calling. He might say, मुझे तुमसे इतना प्यार है, like मुझे मुझे सिर्फ तुम सिर्फ मेरी हो सकती हो, अगर तुम मेरी नहीं हो सकती तुम किसी की नहीं हो सकती. These kinds of Bollywood dialogues,
Yeah.
they might sound romantic, but it's actually a sign that he sees you as a possession, like he wants to be so possessive, that he does not see you as a human being who has the right to privacy, who has the right to call or text whoever you want. Or another example of control is like him saying, oh, like you're wearing that, what are you wearing? Go change. That's not telling you what you can wear, what kind of makeup you can wear, what clothes, what shoes, who you can be friends with, how often you can talk to your family. Like, all these are examples of what might seem at first like innocent behavior, but overall, like if you imagine yourself married to this kind of person, you're going to lose yourself. You're going to end up being fully controlled by the other person.
That's right. And at this point, again, want to remind everybody we have Daya Houston's information pinned on our Facebook Live. But if you're listening to us, it is dayahouston.org. And we also have the number and everything flashing on our Facebook Live. So reach out to Daya for whatever help you're looking for. It could be the red flags. If you feel there's a red flag that Harima is just talking about and you want to talk to someone, feel free to even share on our Namaste Radio's Facebook page if you want to share in our below on the comments in our live or privately. But one thing which is very important is if you feel something, please share, please reach out. Don't keep it to yourself. It can change your future for good, so reach out. Now, what are some barriers South Asian face when seeking mental health services, Harima? Would you like to share about that?
Yeah, I hear this a lot, from our clients who are just now starting to seek counseling for the first time, and they're not really sure what to expect because they have not been exposed all their life. They have been told that, your family is everything. Everything you need, you can get all of your needs met from your family. And that is, the message that they get is don't talk to anybody outside about your family matters.
Yeah.
So that's a barrier that we as South Asians have to overcome if we want to get professional help for our mental health. We have to realize that, it's okay to speak up, to talk to somebody else, especially when there is that confidentiality. Other times, many times, our clients will go to like a religious leader first before they come to Daya. They'll try different things, like they'll speak to family. If that wasn't very helpful, they will speak to their, mosque leader, their temple, somebody, a priest. And sometimes they get some unhelpful advice there as well. Sometimes, the religious leaders can be very helpful and supportive. Other times they can say things like, no, you should compromise. And, our religion teaches us that divorce is bad or whatever, so they do get mixed messages in our culture, especially from our family elders. Many times the elders will say, nahi, nahi, koi baat nahi, like compromise kar lo, aisa hota hai. मर्द बंदे ऐसे ही होते हैं, ये उनके लिए आपकी औरत की जॉब होती है कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना
Yeah.
और उसको खुश रखना. तो
Yeah.
चुप करके वेट कर लो, वो ठीक हो जाएगा.
Yeah.
Sometimes the family elders will all get together and they will try to help resolve the issue. So if you have an abusive partner with you and all of his family is there in the room, like you are going to feel like a lamb in a lion's den.
Yeah.
That's not going to be very helpful. So in-laws can sometimes make the situation worse. We see a lot of involvement of family actually making things worse instead of better in our culture. So they say like, किसी से बात करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, किसी दूसरे को इन्वॉल्व करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, लाइक हमारी बदनामी होगी, लोग क्या कहेंगे, हम कैसे लोगों के सामने लाइक बताएंगे कि हमारी बेटी की डिवोर्स हो गई है. लाइक
Right.
divorce alone is seen as this horrible thing that if you get divorced, like God forbid, your life is over. So these types of things make people very afraid to involve a counselor or even a domestic violence advocate in their situation.
Mhm.
I want to say there's a kind of a generational gap here. I think in the younger generation, things are changing. Younger people, younger clients that we have, they don't tend to be as concerned about those things like family reputation and image, and in-laws and things like that. That can change, but there's factors also that they want to go to a counselor who understands their culture. So I
Yeah,
think that's a barrier for South Asians looking for a counselor, that it can be very hard to find a counselor who speaks your language, who is from your culture, who understands. You might want to explain things like dowry. How are you going to explain dowry pressure to like an American counselor, right? So there's just less choice to find a counselor who will fully understand all those things.
absolutely. And that's why, we've been saying that reach out to counselors. And one very important point that you said was family tries to tell you that, it's okay. And hota hai. It's all of us will lie if we say that हमारे moms या हमारे mother-in-laws ने हमें ये नहीं बोला होगा कि it's okay, उसे गुस्सा आता है तो तुम चुप बैठ जाओ. I have also heard that from my mom, my mother-in-law. We are fortunate if our spouses are not abusive. But ये जो एक dialogue है that has been going on from generation to generation, and I think it's about time that ये सिर्फ लड़कियों को बोला जाए. I think ये overall किसी को भी नहीं बोला जाना चाहिए क्योंकि छोटी बात है, बड़ी बात है. I think it's good to speak up, talk about it, and get it solved. But is it that easy? The way jitna easy, it sounds right now, it is not. But that's why we have counselors. That's why the first step is going to come from you. You have to reach out to them. You have to get ready to call them. So please reach out. Don't wait for something big to happen. रीच आउट एंड टॉक. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आपका दिल हल्का हो जाएगा, अगर और कुछ नहीं. You will get the right direction. Now we have about 10 minutes left, so and I wanted to ask you two more questions to Harima before we let her go today. Now this important question is, how can counseling help someone leave an abusive relationship?
Yeah, so all of those barriers that we were just talking about, those barriers can be talked about in counseling. Like the client can talk about how difficult it was to feel ignored and dismissed by her family, by her religious community,
Mhm.
and really process the emotions around that to try to overcome those barriers. The most painful rejection, I think for survivors comes from mom, from immediate family. Like if mom says, तुम्हारे पापा भी अब्यूसिव थे, मैंने तो टॉलरेट कर लिया, तुम क्यों नहीं कर सकती, मैंने तुम्हारे लिए, तुम्हारे भाई के लिए सब कुछ टॉलरेट किया, तो तुम भी कर लो.
Right.
So those types of messages you can unlearn the impact from them in counseling. And the biggest thing I think is hope, to just have this hope instilled in you with the help of counseling that you can get better, you can overcome, you can hear about examples of other people, other survivors, even in group therapy, like we do have support group at Daya in which survivors can talk to each other and they can share experiences about how they overcame and they can help each other, which can be so, so powerful to not just hear from me, a professional, but to hear from somebody who has been through exactly what they have been through, to try to move forward and have the hope, looking at somebody who was in a more difficult situation, who did not speak English, who did not have immigration status, who did not have a car, and if she made it, why can't I make it? So you
Sure.
develop this hope and this courage with the help of counseling. And you can also learn very practical skills on how to manage your triggers. For a lot of clients, they have trauma triggers that remind them of the abuse they went through. And a trauma trigger can be like somebody's talking to them in a loud voice,
Mhm.
or a certain smell of a certain cologne. It reminds them of the abuse. So we can teach them how to handle those types of triggers, how to manage depression, how to manage stress, how to manage the caregiver stress that they might be feeling as they're trying to juggle taking care of their children and themselves. So you can learn some skills on how to just cope with everything while you're going through this. And that can be very helpful in deciding whether or not to leave.
Absolutely, and that's why Daya is there. आपका आप जब उन्हें रीच आउट करोगे तो आपका हाथ पकड़ के आपको आगे लेके चलेंगे, आपको गाइड करेंगे. सो प्लीज अगेन, वी कांट से दिस इनफ. इफ यू फील all everything or anything, even this one thing that Harima shared today, अगर आप उससे रिलेट करते हैं तो प्लीज रीच आउट करिए दया को. दे आर देयर फॉर यू. दे विल हेल्प यू थ्रू दिस प्रोसेस. एंड आपकी आगे की ज़िंदगी सुधारने के लिए दे आर देयर विद यू. Now, before we get into the details about how they can contact Daya again, how can the community start to break the stigma that survivors face? Our South Asian community में ये बड़ा होता है, तो how can they do that?
That's a big, big goal and a big challenge for all of us, I think, because it's everyone's business. It's everyone's responsibility. It does not fall on just one person, and it has to come from all of us that we can finally start to break this cycle of abuse. And I talked a little bit previously about the generational thing. Like mom says, "I tolerated, why can't you?" Like it's on us, particularly in the younger generation, to try to break that cycle and realize that just because our mothers and grandmothers tolerated abuse, it does not mean that we have to. And we
Right.
can break that cycle. We can teach our children healthy relationships. We can raise our boys better than this. We can teach our boys to respect women. It starts with those little behaviors, to put take things into your own hands and break the silence. Speak about it. If somebody speaks up and they say that they have been in an abusive relationship, believe them. Don't just tell them, oh, but it doesn't sound that bad, or oh, that's just verbal. Like, वो तो होता है, ऐसा तो होता ही है. Like, शादी में disagreements तो होती हैं. Domestic violence is not the same as disagreements. It's, like I said, a pattern of power and control. One person tries to be powerful or controlling over the other person and keep them down, keep them suppressed. So it's not the same as just kit bit. Like शादी में definitely disagreements होती हैं, लड़ाइयाँ भी होती हैं, लेकिन difference ये होता है कि वो लड़ाइयाँ आप अपने open communication के साथ resolve कर रहे हो या आप violence के साथ वो conflicts resolve कर रहे हो. That's the difference. So, I want to tell people to call it what it is. If it's abuse, don't call it marriage problems. Don't call it family problems. If it's domestic abuse, if it's domestic violence, say that. Because words have power. Our words have a lot of power, and what words we choose to label something. And it really, we need to understand that it leaves families so traumatized and broken. Like we hear about how bad is divorce, and divorce leaves families broken. Abuse leaves families a lot more broken and traumatized than divorce does. So sometimes that might be the best choice for somebody, to leave. For another person, the best choice might be to stay. That's always a personal choice. But as a community, we also need to destigmatize divorce as a concept and not look at a divorced woman, even if it was her second marriage. I hear this a lot from clients. They're like, how can I get a divorce? It's my second marriage. People will ridicule me. People will shame me. I will be completely destroyed. Nobody will ever want to associate with me again. Like we need to get that stigma out of mental health and get that stigma out of divorce as well. Because in a healthy family, it's all just about respect, dignity. It's about equality. It doesn't matter, if somebody has been divorced or not, but we do have a double standard with gender here as well. Like a divorced woman is going to be treated much more differently than a divorced man. So
Mhm.
that's also another thing to bring awareness to in our community, and to realize that breaking the cycle of domestic violence also comes from breaking down the patriarchy. Like there needs to be more gender equality for there to be less abuse.
Absolutely. Great points out there, Harima. And overall, the main point is accept it, like she said, and address this situation and reach out. Those are some really important points. With this, our show is actually ending here, but this is a very, very small way of trying to share this or talk about this important topic. It's very important to discuss this topic, and we are again so thankful to Daya Houston. We are so thankful to Harima, who was able to take out time and talk to us about this. Before we let you go today, Harima, would you be able to now share the contact details of for Daya and how they can reach you?
Yes, yeah, the best way to reach us is through our helpline. We are open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and our helpline number is 713-981-7645. If you're unable to reach us there, please be sure to leave a voicemail. with your name and a safe phone number or safe email to contact you back. And we will be sure to do that within one business day. I also want to let people know of the option to contact us by email at contact@diahouston.org, and that's where you can reach us by email. I understand for a lot of people, phone is not safe, their phone activity is being monitored. So please be sure that if you contact us by phone or email, that it is safe to do so. If you are unable to safely reach us by phone or email, try to find somebody else, like a friend, a neighbor, somebody else whose device you can use to reach out to us. Just find a way to connect with us in however works for you. You can also go to our website, diahouston.org, and find some videos on safety planning, find lots of helpful resources on self care and safety, and other resources in the Houston area. So you may be able to find what you're looking for. And, we look forward to hearing from you and helping you. And we do not turn anybody away. We're happy to help you in whatever way that you would like.
Absolutely. And we also have Hope Clinic. Their behavior department's number is 713-773-0803. You can also reach out to them. They have, they can help you with different services. And also at India House Houston, they do have, free relationship coaching done by Deepthi Patel. And you can reach out to 713-929-1900 for getting an appointment, and that's absolutely free too. And at this point, again, I want to thank India House Houston for partnering with us on this special series, Mental Health Awareness in Asian Americans. And we want to thank Hawk Foundation and Asian American Health Coalition for their sponsorship. And now, Rima, before we let you go, would you like to share any positive thought?
Everything we talked about today was so depressing. I apologize for that.
No, that is important. And, just talking about it is so important.
Absolutely. And I find the work that I do to be so rewarding and so uplifting because I get to see people come out of abusive relationships. I don't just see them struggling in them. So I want to give that message of hope to anybody out there who might be listening. It is possible for you to start over. It's never too late. It's never too late. We have clients all the way from 18 years old to 72 years old. It's never
Wow.
too late.
Absolutely.
So, there's always a chance for a better life. You don't deserve to live in an abusive relationship. You deserve better.
Absolutely. You do deserve better, and that is the key point. Reach out, and Daya Houston is there for you, doing wonderful work, helping so many survivors for the last 25 years. So reach out to Daya Houston. Their website again is www.dayahouston.org, and lot of this information, if you're just joining us, you can always listen to this show on our Facebook page, Namaste Radio's Facebook page. The entire video is going to be there. You can also listen to the podcast. And with this, again, I want to thank you, Harima, and everyone at Daya for sharing this important information, sharing all that knowledge with all our viewers and listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanchika, and thanks Namaste Radio for shedding light on this important issue. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. We are totally honored, and this is the least that we can do. It may be close to your heart. So, if you feel you want to give us some feedback, you want to participate and share your story on this show, please reach out to us on Namaste Radio's Facebook page. We will be back next Saturday at 10 a.m. for our Namaste Radio show on 99.5 FM on Namaste Radio's Facebook page. And again at noon, we will be back with another topic, talking to another speaker, talking on mental health. So follow us on Namaste Radio's Facebook page, follow us on Namaste Radio's Instagram page. And of course, don't forget to follow Daya Houston on Facebook. Thank you so much. Thank you, Harima. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Houston. Bye bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you.